Excellent. All right, everybody, let's please continue to be a great audience. Give our full attention to Kelsi as she speaks to us about processed foods.
On my 21st birthday, I began the first of many chemotherapy treatments for stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, the causes of this cancer are not completely known yet, but they're mostly attributed to the intake of many of the chemicals that are in our processed foods today. After my cancer came back a second and a third time, I knew I begged a closer look at what I had been eating. So I appreciate being able to allow you to let me share with you some of what I've learned. It's pretty clear that there's something different about these foods when Mary Lou Henner, actress and leading advocate for Total Health Makeover, stated that research has shown that even small amounts of processed food alters the chemical balance in our brains and causes negative mood swings, along with noticeable dips in energy. I was personally experiencing firsthand that this was only the tip of the iceberg of processed foods. In addition to the nearly 6,000 chemicals and additives in our foods, she continued, preserving processes have changed beyond recognition from the simple vinegar, salt, and sunshine. I want you to keep in mind this statistic. Regardless of this information, 90% of people's food budgets are still spent on processed foods, according to a recent survey by Science Daily. Have you ever noticed that when you watch television, read a magazine, a newspaper, or look at a billboard, you are inundated with ads about foods? Well, I've got news for you. These foods that they are marketing so aggressively are leading to weight gain, diabetes, heart disease, cancers, and early death even. So today I'm encouraged to inform you about whole foods, which I'll call real foods, and processed foods, which I'll refer to as fake foods, their effects on our body, and how to know the difference between them. Let's first understand what makes a whole food whole and what makes a food processed. Whole foods are unrefined. They're unprocessed or minimally processed just prior to consumption. On the opposite end of the spectrum, processed foods are maximally processed. The definition of processed foods, according to the Mayo Clinic's Encyclopedia Reference, are that processed foods are foods that are transformed from clean, raw, natural foods to attractive, marketable foods. Allow me to dive deeper with you into these two types of foods and their effects on our body. You may notice that an easy way to distinguish between real foods and fake foods are that real foods spoil fast. This is because the microbes and bacteria, they know what's healthy to eat. If it's sitting in your pantry for 6 months and it's still good, it's a fake food. When you go and look at it all this time later, why is it that it looks exactly like it did 6 months ago? If you're like me, you'll be shocked to know that the microbes, the bacteria, yeast, and molds, they don't even want to eat this stuff. I learned in my microbiology class that these foods containing countless ingredients and chemicals are inedible even to microbes. The billions of healthy bacteria in our digestive system that are essential to our health aren't going to be so happy when their incoming food is processed. On the other hand, when they're fed whole foods, this is actually going to be food for the bacteria, leading them to be held happy, our bodies to be held happy, and functioning properly. So now, how exactly do we identify and differentiate between whole foods and fake foods when shopping? Some of the characteristics of whole foods are that they are natural. They're grown from the ground or they're from an animal. They're generally inconvenient because they usually require some sort of preparation. And lastly, they're very bright in colors. I like how MSNBC's leading health analyst states the obvious. When you go to the grocery store and you look at the broccoli and you inspect the little tag on the broccoli, guess what? There's no ingredient list. There's no list that says contains broccoli. If you're looking for whole foods, you can purchase them from many of your local farmers markets, or if you're in the store, you're going to find them on the outer rim of the grocery store. This is where all the milks, natural proteins, and produce are found. On the opposite side of that are processed foods. Their characteristics are they're in a box, they're in a package, they're in a can, they're in a bag, they're covered with foil, they're covered with plastic, and frankly, they're convenient. If you go into the freezer section and look at a mixed vegetable frozen dinner, you're going to find a long ingredient list with stuff that you've probably never even heard of. If you take a look at the aisles in the middle of the grocery store where it's room temperature or frozen, that's where you're going to find the foods that are processed, with a few exceptions. Let's face it, as Americans, we're confused about what to eat. We are marketed, campaigned, and commercialed to death, literally. Remembering that 90% of our food budget is spent on processed foods, I firmly believe that the foods we are marketed are the foods that keep us addicted and keep us eating more. Further motivated by the opportunity to share this information with you today, I was determined to accomplish my personal health goal prior to this speech. Throughout my cancer adventure, the steroid treatments, multiple medications, and convenience eating when my energy and health was at its lowest, I ballooned up to 100 pounds over my normal body weight. 2 weeks ago, I'm proud to share that I hit my goal of 100 pounds lost. This 2-year mission was slow and steady. It all began with replacing the fake with the real, and my body naturally responded. Thank you for sharing in my journey.